fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Tuesday afternoon edition, Air Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Air Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Monster Tuesday show. So much to discuss. Here's what we're going to get into. We're going to open. Kansas knocks off number 1 Arizona, an absolute thriller. We'll discuss that game. I think it was one of actually the signature wins of Bill Self's time at Kansas. Apparently, I've started a discourse on social media. I would not take Darryn Peterson number 1 as he misses yet another marquee game. We'll discuss Mikel Brown Jr. going off for 45 points. I have to remember how many he went off for. Charles Bediako's done. Jon Scheyer sort of running back his comments from Saturday. So we got ourselves a monster show. So much to get into. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. 1, make sure that you are subscribed to the Air Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We are officially under 100 subscribers away from 70,000 subs. So if you know a friend that loves college basketball or college football, go ahead and send them the Torres Pod. We appreciate your support. Also, if you listen on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, we do appreciate your support there as well. As always, as pinned in the comments section, our College Sports Insider newsletter. So much going on in the world of college sports every single day to your inbox. Make sure to subscribe right there. Very easy to do so. Everything going on in the world of NIL and all of that. Also, before we get started, Matt, I'm going to throw you a little bit of curveball right off the top. Let's thank our friends and the ticketing partners of the Aaron Torres Pod. Let's go ahead and thank SeatGeek. Maybe you're a Kansas fan coming into the show today. You're saying, I need to get back to Fog because that place is unbelievable. Maybe you're an Arizona fan saying, guess what? Kansas comes to town in a few weeks. We want revenge. I need tickets. Well, where you need to go is to SeatGeek. It is America's #1 ticketing app, over 28 million downloads. And what I love about SeatGeek is really 2 things. Is 1, every ticket on the app rated 1 through 10. Got a green dot or a red dot. Green dot means go ahead and purchase. Red dot means maybe you want to go ahead and stay away. But what I really love about SeatGeek is this. They take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres Pod. If you go to SeatGeek.com or the SeatGeek app, if you use promo code Torres, that is promo code TORRES, you get, how about this? You get $20 off your first purchase. Any ticket to any game, any concert, any show. It doesn't have to be college hoops. MLB is coming up, spring training, whatever you want to go see, a concert, a show. If they sell a ticket to it on SeatGeek, all you got to do is go to SeatGeek.com and use promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres. What a day. What an app. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. With that said, it is a busy Monster Tuesday in the world of sports. No more time to waste. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, we told you on Sunday's show heading into Super Bowl Sunday. He said, well, I can already tell you where we are going to lead Tuesday's show. Kansas hosting Arizona. And there was so much at stake in this game. Kansas never lost a big Monday game under Bill Self, 39-0, I believe, coming into the night. By the way, they had never beaten a #1 ranked team in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. That's frankly because they're usually the ones that's ranked #1, not the opponent. But also, Arizona undefeated. Arizona best resume in college hoops with the win at BYU, with the win at UConn, with the wins everywhere over everybody. Well, I bring it up because it was a crazy back and forth game, an awesome finish. and there is nothing else to say. And oh, by the way, I should probably mention as well that, minutes before tip-off, we found out that the number one pick in the draft, Darryn Peterson, potentially was not going to play in this game. That feels like an important note that we will get to in a second, but it does not matter, as final score, Kansas 82, Arizona 78. As you can see on the screen there, Arizona's first loss of the season. Bill Self, undefeated, still at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. And I'll tell you what, you could just tell by the way that Bill Self was acting, by the way that his players were acting, just how much it means to them. Matt, you can pop up the still pictures. We cannot show, by the way, full video from the game. That's obviously part of the ESPN broadcast. But when you have a Hall of Fame coach who has won darn near 1,000 games in his career, hugging players at mid-court, you know this meant something. You know it was different. And I don't think it is hyperbole to say this is one of the great wins of the Bill Self era at Kansas. I understand he's got 2 national championships. I understand he's got 18 Big 12 regular season titles. And I understand in his mid-60s, there aren't very many firsts that he can still cross off the list. But for the first time ever, he knocks off the number 1 team in the country at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. And again, if you could not tell how excited he was, all you had to do was take a look at those pictures right there. And oh, by the way, unbelievable. It was like, I'll say it was like emotional for me. I'm like, I've watched Bill Self for 25 years. I've never seen him like this. So it was unbelievably emotional for Bill Self. It was emotional for the fans. You know, I don't know how many people noticed, but Bill Self stayed for an interview with Scott Van Pelt after the game. The entire arena was still there. About 3, 4, 5 minutes after the game was over, the whole place was packed. It just felt like one of those nights that you wanted to stay. You wanted it to last forever. You wanted to soak it in. And oh, by the way, you know who else was fired up? The players. This from Kansas's official social media page after the game. Matt, you can go ahead and play the video. Be ready, people. Cover your ears. You mean to tell me this was just another game at Fog Allen Fieldhouse? Unbelievable, as Arizona 82-78. Listen, like I said, it feels hyperbolic to say that it is one of the great wins of the Bill Self era when he has quite literally nearly 1,000 wins. But the emotion, certain games just define an entire era, an entire program, whatever. As a UConn guy, beating Villanova in 2022 when Villanova, whatever. It was unbelievable. It was incredible. You can see the excitement. So let's go ahead and dive into the game. The X factors, how Kansas pulled this off. And it's funny because when I think about the X factors in this game, the first one, more than Flory Badunga, more than Bryson Tiller, who, oh, by the way, we might get on the show by the end of the day today. We might have to come back and go live with Bryson Tiller later on. We're actually working with his people. Another conversation. We'll save it for later. Melvin Council, whoever. You know what the biggest X factor was? It was Fog Allen Fieldhouse. And I've said this a million times. And for people who are new to the show, or maybe you're not new to the show, I've said it. I will never tell anyone how to spend their money. I will never tell anybody to spend money on stuff that you don't have. But what I've always said is this. I have been to one game at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. My alma mater, UConn, played there not only this year, but in the 2023-2024 season. I went. It was my first game there, and there is no place like it in college basketball. It is totally unique. It's crazy loud. It's crazy hot. Every seat, from what I can remember, is a bleacher seat. I like to say it's like Wrigley Field or Fenway Park. There's no way this arena would get built in 2026 the way that it is, but it is the most unique home court in college basketball. When you want to talk about the biggest X factor, why Kansas won that game, more than the Hall of Fame head coach, more than the players, it was that arena. Here is some video from a fan who was in the arena on Monday night. I've said it a million times. I don't know how anyone wins in that arena. I don't know how Bill Self has ever lost a game there. But let's get into the game itself. As far as the game, I think what was cool was this. And again, we will talk about the Darryn Peterson situation in half a second, because I have certainly created a discourse on social media right now. I got former Kansas players chirping at me. I got former NBA players agreeing with me, whatever. But to me, outside of the game itself, outside of the arena, outside of the spectacle, what was so cool about this game, in Darryn Peterson's absence, a bunch of other guys stepped up, right? They find out what we think was minutes before tip-off that Darryn Peterson was going to be unable to play. And every kind of segment of the game, it was somebody a little bit different stepping up. First, it was Bryson Tiller. For people who don't know the story about this kid, redshirted last year, played at OTE. I'll be honest, I didn't have a ton of expectation for him coming in, but I go back to that Louisville game early in the season, preseason exhibition. I'm like, oh, this guy's a pro. Well, he was the guy that really carried them early, 18 points in the game, but also 14 points in the first half. Listen, I don't think it's hyperbole to say that if he doesn't do what he does early in the game, I don't know if Kansas wins that game. So Bryson Tiller was the guy early. Melvin Council, this story is unbelievable. And I thought Fran Fraschilla and Jon Scheyer did an amazing job of telling his story during the game. But 4 different colleges in 4 years, started in JUCO, went to Wagner, goes to St. Bonaventure. And what was so cool about the story there was that basically he got to Kansas and he realized, like, nobody was really stepping up to be a leader. And he was like, well, if nobody's going to step up, I am going to do it. I'm going to have to step up. I'm going to have to be the guy. Well, he stepped up on Monday night in this game. This is a guy that really all season long, as the lineups have changed and players have been in and out of the lineup, and you kind of know who I'm talking about specifically, Melvin Council's the guy that's come through. And he was the guy, especially late, that made a lot of the big shots, played all 40 minutes in this game. No cramping for him, no load management for him. 23 points, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, 6 assists. What I actually loved about this, by the way, after the game, we didn't pull the video, but he goes to the podium. He was 6 for 25 from the field. And what's so funny about it was he goes to the podium, he looks at the stat sheet, he goes, I was 6 for 10. And Flory Badunga goes, bro, yeah, you need to start passing the ball a little bit more, jokingly, obviously, but it was a really funny moment between those two guys. And then lastly, let me also say this, is that on top of that, Flory Badunga was the X factor in this game. And I thought, to me, he's such a testament to Bill Self, who he is, how good Bill Self is. Flory Badunga, I know he was a McDonald's All-American, okay? But this was a guy who averaged 5 points and 5 assists last year. I remember even in the spring, or 5 assists, or 5 points and 5 rebounds, excuse me. And I remember even in the spring, he entered the transfer portal, and there was this buzz of like, why are you guys hyping him up? He averaged 5 points and 5 rebounds. I'm like, this guy has a chance to be really good. He obviously withdrew from the portal, returns to Kansas, and he had, I thought, the signature game of his career. I think more importantly than the signature game of his career, I thought it was the signature game of who he has become as a player. This is a guy who, again, was kind of toolsy and raw last year. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. Oh, by the way, like everybody else on the roster, as the lineup changes, as people change, as players are available and not available, he is just a consistent 15 points, 9 rebounds, about a block and a half per game. And I think he's a testament to who Bill Self is as a coach. I say this all the time about Bill Self, but listen, there are a lot of great coaches in college basketball. And so when I credit Bill Self, and we're going to talk more about Bill Self specifically in a second, it's not to disparage Rick Pitino or Dan Hurley or Tom Izzo or Dusty May or John Calipari or Rick Barnes or whoever. But I think Bill Self might be the best player development guy in all of college basketball. We know about the guys, Frank Mason, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, Devontae Graham, Christian Brown, that get to school with little to no hype. And every single year you see them getting better year over year over year over year. Well, that's Bryson Tiller, who redshirted last year, and it is certainly Flory Badunga, who I think you can argue one of the, maybe the best two-way big in college basketball right now. Listen, I'm not, again, trying to disparage Cam Boozer or, pick a big guy. I don't know. But you talk about a guy that has impact on the court. As I said a minute ago, 23 points in this game. On top of that, he also had 9 rebounds, 3 blocks, and he was just unbelievable. And I think he's a testament to who Bill Self is and how Bill Self develops players in that program. Speaking of Bill Self, listen, I'd be remiss if I didn't give him credit, man. And I tweeted this out on Monday night. And Matt, I think I sent you one tweet. You can just pop it up. It sounds crazy to say. To me, this is one of Bill Self's signature wins at Kansas. And it sounds crazy, but to me, I've said it for 3 weeks now. I've said it since the BYU game. I've said, listen, this is a guy that, again, 2 national championships. This is a guy, again, 18 Big 12 regular season titles. I can honestly tell you, I have never been more impressed with Bill Self, the Hall of Famer, than I am this year. The bottom line with Bill Self is this. I keep saying this, okay? Bill Self is coaching 2 completely different teams right now. And we're going to get into Darryn Peterson in a minute. Last time I'll say that for right now. But bottom line is there is the team with Darryn Peterson. There is the team without Darryn Peterson, okay? And it's not as though, and we've talked about this, but it's not as though Darryn Peterson had some season-ending injury, so you had to adjust, and it's just like, okay, you had him from November 8th to January 20th, and then from January 20th on, you got to figure out life without him. It is literally a game-to-game, half-to-half, hypothetical. He was in the layup line working out on Monday morning before he ends up opting out of the game. And so you have a Hall of Fame coach who literally has maybe the number 1 pick in the draft, and you never know. Are you going to get him? Are you going to get him for 28 minutes? Are you going to get him for 32 minutes? Are you going to get him for 8 minutes? Are you going to get him for 0 minutes? Are you going to get him for 18 minutes in the first half and 0 minutes in the second half? Are you going to get him at shoot around and not in the game? I have never seen anything like this, and we will talk about it from the player perspective in a minute. But from the coaching perspective, this is why I am so impressed by Bill Self. 2 different teams, game to game, minute to minute, half to half. You just don't know what you're getting, and all this guy does is win. And listen, I know there's still tough games ahead. You still have to play Houston. You have a return game to Arizona. You have a return game with Iowa State this weekend. But Kansas is now on an 8-game winning streak. And they've, in what I would argue is maybe the best Big 12 ever. And outside of Houston, they've beaten all the big players. They beat Iowa State. They beat BYU. They beat Arizona. They won at Texas Tech. I mean, these are teams that can make Elite Eights, Final Fours, win national championships, and you're beating them like it's nothing. And you're doing it on days when you don't know what your lineup's going to look like a half an hour before tip-off. So I've said my piece on Kansas. Matt, do me a favor again. Pop like again. I'm not even a Kansas fan. I'm almost, look at that guy. That guy has won. And you know what? I keep saying how many games he's won. I should probably just go ahead and check it out. This guy has won, probably nearly 1,000 games at this point. And we are talking about a guy that you can see on the screen how much this meant to him, how different this is. By the way, it says he's won 629 games at Kansas and overall 836. And I'm telling you, man, I just don't know how many meant more to him specifically. And like I said, it just felt like if you were a Kansas fan on Monday night, there was, the Scott Van Pelt post-game interview where the whole arena was still there. Unbelievable game, unbelievable finish. Congrats to Kansas. Congrats to Kansas fans. You deserve absolutely all the joy that you're getting this year. And I'll say this too. I was one of these guys that was critical of Bill Self the last few years. We're not going to call out any individual players. You know who they are. But it was clear that whoever was in that locker room was the problem and not Bill Self, the Hall of Famer. Because like I said, I think he's doing his best coaching job. Let's switch gears, sort of, and let's stay on this game. So Kansas gets the win over Arizona, 82-78. If you're just joining us, or if you're watching after the fact, or if you're watching clips later on, we just talked about the Kansas game. I think this is Bill Self's best coaching job ever, period. But part of the reason I think it's his best coaching job ever, period, is because of that guy right there, Darryn Peterson. Okay. And so I want to be fair, but I want to have an adult. We're having a big boy conversation right now. If you're soft, if you don't want to deal with real conversation about real topics, then, like Darryn Peterson, grab a towel, get some street clothes, and get out of the arena right now, okay? Because we're about to get real on Darryn Peterson. And let me say this. This is a guy that I very much largely defended for most of this season. I said, look, when we thought it was a hamstring injury in November and December, I said, look, you don't rush back from a hamstring injury, certainly not in November and December. You could re-aggravate the hamstring. You could injure something else by overcompensating, whatever. When it was cramps, I said, this is weird. The moment that I was kind of out on Darryn Peterson was the BYU game. And for people who did not see that show after the game, we all know that he put on one of the great performances ever at Fog Allen in the first half and then played 2 minutes in the second half. I believe it was technically 3, but whatever. And I said at the time, I'm not accusing him of faking an injury. I'm not accusing him of being soft. But what I said at the time was straightforward. If he had cramps, I have never seen a player deal with cramps in the manner that he did. He sat there with a heating pad on, didn't even attempt to get treatment, didn't even attempt to get back into the game as his team was blowing a 20-point lead. And I said, look, I've been watching college basketball. I've been watching basketball for 30 years now. When guys get cramps, they hydrate. When guys get cramps, they get massaged on the sidelines by the trainers. When guys get cramps, they get on a stationary bike and try to move a little bit. So maybe he did have cramps, but he never dealt with them in a manner like anyone else has ever dealt with cramps in the history of basketball. And so that brings us full circle to Monday night. He does not play against Arizona. And I certainly unintentionally started a national discourse. And Matt, you can hold the tweets for half a second because we'll save what I said for half a second. But I just very simply said that if I had the number 1 overall pick, I would not draft Darryn Peterson. And we'll get into why and we'll get into how in a minute. But just for fun, I want to go and look at how many retweets my original tweet has here. So let's see here. My original Darryn Peterson tweet from Monday night, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm surprised. 580 retweets as of 12:25 Eastern time. In other words, people certainly have opinions on Darryn Peterson after Monday night. So let's go ahead and dive in. So Monday night, we're all getting ready for the game. I'll be honest, the Louisville game turned into a blowout. So I started doing some other things around the house, getting ready for the show today. And I look at my phone about 2 minutes before tip-off of Kansas, Arizona. And the number, I had probably 8 or 9 texts like, oh my God, Darryn Peterson's not playing again. Unbelievable, whatever. You know who was actually more disappointed than anybody? It was Arizona fans that were like, we want to see our team against their best, okay? But I bring it up because we found out that he had flu-like symptoms, okay? We found out that he was at shoot-around earlier in the day. Now, I'm not even going to reference the video that's circulated on the Barstool Arizona account where some dude is at the scorer's table tweeting Bill Self told him to take a hike, okay? I don't know if that was accurate. I do know that the Kansas administration themselves came out and said that the video wasn't legit, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I bring it up because flu-like symptoms were the reason. Bill Self, in defense of Darryn Peterson, did defend him. That's generally what happens when you come out in the defense of somebody, you defend them. Here was Bill Self defending his star player after the game.
You mentioned it being unclear if Darryn would be able to go. Was there a reason he wasn't on the availability report today ahead of game time?
Yeah, because we thought he'd go. Yeah, we thought he'd go. So I thought adrenaline would kick in, and he would go. So, and he was at shoot around today. I mean, he was out there, but just what you could just tell, he didn't feel great. But we were all hopeful that he'd kick in and be ready to go. So. You sound like you bet on the game. But no, there was no ploy with that at all.
One, I do think that Bill Self made that betting joke as a deflection on the situation. Two, it is worth noting there are betting ramifications because of the league injury report. Kansas could actually get in trouble for not disclosing that he could potentially be out with flu-like symptoms. And let me also, before I get into bashing Darryn Peterson, let me say this. If he was truly sick with the flu, then no, he should not have played, okay? Listen, we don't want dudes throwing up on the sidelines. We don't want dudes getting their teammates sick either. So let's get that caveat out of the way. But what I would also say in reference to Darryn Peterson is pretty straightforward. Maybe he really did have the flu. But when you couple it with a hamstring injury that nobody could really figure it out, when you couple it with cramps that seem to come and go half to half, game to game, whatever, with, like I said, no even attempt at treatment. By the way, Koa Pete got cramps in the middle of that game last night and played. He was back on the court 2 minutes later, okay? Maybe he has the worst situation of cramps that we've ever seen. Maybe he's got the worst hamstring injury that we've ever seen, and maybe he really did have the flu. But at some point, you become the child who's cried wolf one too many times, and even if he really did have the flu, when you have missed as much time as he has in as high-profile games as he has, forgive me for being the guy who questions just how injured you are and whether you really want to play or not. And as a matter of fact, Matt, now we can pop up the tweet that I put out that sent the internet into a frenzy, okay? This is Darryn Peterson's resume so far this season. It is now February 10th. We are well past the halfway point of the season. Darryn Peterson has missed half of Kansas's games. He sat out the second half against his biggest competition for the number one pick in the draft, AJ DeBonsa. He sat out on Monday night versus the number one pick in the draft against the number one team in the country in Arizona. And then, Matt, go to the second one, and then we'll come back to this one. In the first tweet, I didn't even mention that he also, this is Darryn Peterson, sat out against UConn, number 5 team in the country at that point in the season, maybe the biggest home game to that point. He sat out against Cam Boozer and Duke. Maybe I just never sent that tweet. If so, oh no, there it is. Okay. So I should probably add, in addition to missing more than half his team's games, sitting out the second half versus AJ DeBonsa, sitting out versus number 1 Arizona, he also sat out the entire game against UConn, the entire game against Duke, and he played minimal minutes against UNC. Now, the UNC thing is a little bit in question. UNC fans seem to tell me that he played a lot. I remembered him playing a lot in the first half, then sitting out the second half. If that's wrong, I do apologize, okay? But here is what is indisputable. I would not take him number 1 overall, as I said in the first tweet, because you can defend November and December. You can defend the flu individually. You can defend a hamstring or cramps against AJ DeBonsa individually. But when you put all of them together, at some point, it paints a picture of a dude that I want nothing to do with. And if that makes me unpopular, I don't care. And if Darryn Peterson's agent is mad at me, I don't care. And if NBA teams are mad at me, I don't care. What I can tell you is I know the people who have seen the tweet that I put out, and I know people that have commented on the tweet or sent me private messages, and a lot of them agree, okay? Whether you agree or not. And by the way, I'm not even necessarily calling into question his overall competitiveness. He looked pretty fearless against AJ DeBonsa. But at the same time, let's just do some mental math. 3 biggest games of the year in terms of actual ranking of opponents. Number 1 Arizona, Duke, and UConn, who are both ranked in the top 5. Darryn Peterson played in none of those games. There are 3 guys that I believe are in competition with him for the number 1 overall pick. Did not play against Cam Boozer. Played a half against AJ DeBonsa and then sat out. And of course, as I said, Caleb Wilson, he played 28 minutes. So I can't be too critical there. But again, it felt like late he wasn't playing. I could be wrong. I think there was a stretch at the beginning of the second half. I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong about Caleb Wilson and UNC, I apologize. But at the same time, here is what I go back to is, listen, I'm not calling into question his competitiveness. I'm not even necessarily blaming him. It's clear there's an agent involved. It's clear there's maybe parents involved. It's clear that there are adults involved beyond his control. And again, maybe he really had the flu on Monday night. But at the same time, I'm sorry, I just can't take him number 1 overall. And I think it's obvious. The bottom line is a couple things. One, first of all, this is different because there are other guys that you could justify taking number 1 overall, even if Darryn Peterson was fully healthy, okay? You can justify A.J. DeBonsa. I think you could justify Caleb Wilson. You could justify Cam Boozer. And guess what? None of those guys do you have to question even for half a second if they are healthy enough to play or if they are going to play overall. And that's my issue with Darryn Peterson. I'm not questioning his manhood or whatever, but what I will say, it seems pretty obvious, if he's not 100%, he will not play. Well, I said it after the BYU game. You would have to drag Caleb Wilson on a stretcher off the court to keep him out of a game in meaningful minutes late. Same with Cam Boozer. A.J. DeBonsa, listen, BYU's not playing well right now. A.J. DeBonsa is leaving it all on the court every single night. You cannot question how mentally tough that kid is. I said it the other day. Darius Acuff missed the layup against Kentucky. He was screaming at himself. He was so frustrated. Those are the kind of competitors that I want if I'm drafting number 1 overall. And so to me, all I'm saying is there's plenty of competition at number 1 overall. 2, he has made it abundantly clear that if he is not 100% healthy, he is not going to play. Well, guess what? In an 82-game NBA season, that just ain't going to happen. And 3, let's start, it was funny. People were like, well, congrats. Good thing that you're not a GM. Okay, well, GMs make mistakes all the time. And when do they generally make mistakes? By betting on talent when there is red flags. And so all I said was, I would not take him number 1 overall if I was a GM. I didn't say I wouldn't take him, period. If I'm the Boston Celtics and he falls to me at 26, of course I'm going to take him, And that's just a crazy hypothetical. That'll never happen, okay? But at the same time, I'm just saying I want to take him number 1 overall. I'm just saying that if I was a GM and I had to bet my career, I wouldn't do it on him. And I'm sorry. And I was thinking about this. Name me the player who consistently had injuries in college that went on to have an injury-free career in the NBA where there were no issues. And by the way, with most guys that got hurt, nobody questioned the injuries when they were in college, right? Joel Embiid got hurt late in the year. Nobody was questioning if he was actually hurt, but whatever. The one that a lot of people threw at me, by the way, was Kyrie Irving. Well, Kyrie Irving was hurt and he was the number 1 overall pick. Wow, you're dumb, Torres. Okay, well, let's talk about Kyrie Irving. I remember Kyrie Irving legitimately hurting his toe and being out for an extended period of time. I remember the fact that nobody questioned if he was actually hurt. It was one injury, and everybody knew he was hurt. Nobody was saying that, oh, is Kyrie really hurt? Is that toe really injured? Then he comes back for the NCAA tournament to help his team. And oh, by the way, there wasn't any competition for him at number 1 overall. I'm sorry, Derek Williams was the number 2 overall pick. Nobody thought Derek Williams was the number 2 pick until he beat Kyrie Irving in the NCAA tournament that year. So I could go on and on. But I'm not saying Darryn Peterson's a terrible human being. I'm sure he's a lovely individual. But what I am saying is I just wouldn't take him number 1 overall. I'm not betting my career on a dude that cannot consistently stay healthy on the court in college basketball. And as I've said a million times, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And what he tells me is, whether it's him or his agent, if he's not healthy, if he's not 100%, he's not playing. And again, I'll just be clear, and then we'll get to some other stuff because we got to talk Bediako, Jon Scheyer, Mikel Brown Jr., all that. But I'm not saying that he should play through injuries. What I'm just saying is every week it's something different, and it's starting to get weird. I've said my piece. I've talked long enough. I wish him well. I will say this, the last time that myself and pretty much everybody in the college basketball media called out Darryn Peterson, Texas Tech, Utah played more minutes than he had at any point. So maybe he comes back the next time that Kansas takes the court at Iowa State and plays 40 minutes, and there's no doubt about it, and we never have to talk about it again. But we just talked about it a week ago, and it really hasn't gotten much better. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. Matt, do me a favor, play Cauley Puffs next, but we'll play Cauley Puffs. We'll hear from them because we love Cauley Puffs on this show. And when we come back, we will talk about Mikel Brown Jr., who was unbelievable. We will talk about Charles Bediako, who might be unbelievable, but it'll be back in the G League. And Jon Scheyer starting to sort of run back some of his comments from the last few days. We'll take a quick break, bring back all of these conversations. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Cauley Puffs and CauleyPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about Cauley Puffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with Cauley Puffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need Cauley Puffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to CauleyPuffs.com. That's CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. CauleyPuffs.com gets you 15% off. Cauley Puffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but CauleyPuffs.com, CauleyPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at Cauley Puffs. Couple things. First of all, good to be back. Good to be back. One, we got some guy in the chat saying, I can't stand this fan guy, ultimate Kansas hater. I was practically in tears. Matt, show me Bill Self again hugging his players at half court. Torres is holding back tears, okay? I didn't get this emotional at my grandma's funeral. And I'm watching Bill Self. I'm practically in tears here. It's unbelievable. By the way, rest in peace, Grandma. I love you and I miss you. But Kansas hater, all I'm doing is commenting your program and talking about how amazing it is. Matt, let's see. Do we have any other comments? I could just look really quick if we don't. By the way, as a matter of fact, Matt, before we get to the comments, I forgot this. I'm an idiot. I'm all over the place today. Matt, do we have the Ron Harper tweet? Matt, pop up the Ron Harper tweet. Did I send it to you? Okay. So my original tweet, I would not draft him number 1 overall. Ron Harper, NBA champion, who I also think it's worth noting, his son plays for the San Antonio Spurs. 2 sons have come through the AAU system in this era. His son was the number 2 overall pick last year, Dylan Harper. He said, I agree with you. Today's players don't like playing no more. You tell him, Ron Harper. Apparently, I'm a Kansas hater because I say that, God forbid, a guy play more than half of his team's games. All right, let's get to a couple comments. Do we have any other interesting comments, Matt? Let's see what we got here. DMP's dad is worse than LeVar Ball. Listen, say what you want about LeVar. Listen, I live in LA. I got to know LeVar a little bit. You can criticize LeVar for being too loud, too boisterous. He threw his kids into the fire. I mean, you could argue that Lonzo playing as much as he did is part of the reason why he has injuries now. LaMelo, listen, the first time I ever saw the Ball brothers play, LaMelo was in 8th grade playing in a tournament with Lonzo going into his senior year. So why is Melo so good in NBA All-Star right now? It's because he was playing against essentially grown men, players 5 years older than him when he was in 7th, 8th grade. They never ducked the competition, and it certainly looks like Darryn Peterson is ducking the competition. Maybe he's not. I'm just telling you, that's how it looks. Let's get to the next one. Bryson Tiller had cramps as well, and he came back and played. That's darn right, David Gutierrez. It's a great point by you. Bryson Tiller, who's on Kansas, who, by the way, may be joining the Aaron Torres pod by the end of the day. We actually got to get this show moving because I'm supposed to interview him this afternoon. Bryson Tiller played in this game, got cramps, left, came back. Koa Pete got cramps, left, came back. Darryn Peterson got cramps in November, still isn't really back yet. It's unbelievable. I know Monday was about the flu, and maybe he really had it. All I know is he was at warm-ups, he was at shoot-around, he was in the layup line before the game. Whatever. Kansas has actually played better team ball without him, says Jim Matthews. Jim, I think, is an Arizona fan. I had multiple Arizona fans tell me after the fact. They said, we think we would have won that game if he had actually played in that game. And I think there's something to it, right? I think he is immensely talented, but when you have a guy that talented, sometimes guys stand around and whatever. I don't know. I listen, I would love to get some true serum in that locker room. I'm guessing the guys that are on the floor. And that was the thing I actually noticed was the BYU game when he was on the bench. It wasn't like, I don't know. I don't want to start speculating. I've done enough speculating, whatever. You know what I don't have to speculate about? What's that? Let's see here. J.K. Helm says, keep it up before you keep up the good work. It won't be long before you take over for Stephen A. By the way, fun fact about Stephen A. Former co-host of that show, Molly Karam, UConn alum. All the best media members went to UConn, so shout out Molly, Stephen A. Listen, just tell it like it is. Some people like it, some people don't. We are very grateful for everybody who has found this show. 70,000 subscribers. We'll be at 100,000 soon, and maybe I'll be on for Stephen A. Thank you, J.K. Helm. You know who else I got to thank, Matt? I thank our friends, our hotel and casino partners. I got to thank Circus Sportsbook. So listen, bottom line is it's that time of year. You're looking for places to watch the games. There's the beautiful Circus Sportsbook in Vegas. But there is also the brand new Circus Sportsbook at Mint, Kentucky Downs, the Mint in Franklin, Kentucky. All of the same great amenities of the Vegas Sportsbook have come to Franklin, Kentucky. It's about 35, 40 minutes from Nashville. I did the drive in 39 minutes door to door, 20 minutes from Bowling Green. And this is the best place as we get closer to March to go watch games, be part of the action, NCAA tournament, SEC tournament if you can't make it out, or just a great Saturday where you just need a place to watch some games. The brand new Circus Sportsbook, Mint, Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. I've said it a few times. Producer Matt and I will be doing a few shows from there in the lead up to March Madness. You can always email me, Aaron Torres, podcastquestions@gmail.com. If you want to be part of what we're doing there. Have had a bunch of people actually reach out already. So excited to meet all of you. We may even have a special guest. Brand new Circus Sportsbook, Mint, Kentucky Downs. Brand new Circus Sportsbook, Mint, Kentucky Downs. 20 minutes from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it is about 40 or so minutes from Nashville. It's also about 3.5 hours from where college basketball started on Monday night. Let's get into the first game of the evening. This was supposed to be a nice little appetizer for what was to come Monday night, Arizona at Kansas. NC State at Louisville, right? NC State, to their credit, coming into Monday was, playing just insane basketball. They were undefeated on the road in the ACC. They won at Clemson, something that nobody else in college basketball has done this year. They're playing great basketball, 9-2 overall in the league. Louisville had won 4 or 5 since Mikel Brown Jr. came back from injury. And so you sat there and said, goodness gracious, we got ourselves a heck of a lead-in to the Kansas-Arizona game on Monday night. That's how it was supposed to go on paper. Unfortunately, they don't play games on paper, and that's certainly unfortunate for Will Wade, the entire NC State basketball program, because you talk about a beatdown for the ages and you talk about multiple performances for the ages. We got to talk about what happened at the Yum Center, because how about this? Louisville gets the win. Final score 118-77. And Mikel Brown Jr. with one of the greatest performances that you will ever see in college basketball. 45 points on 10 3-pointers made. Oh, just for good measure, Ryan Conwell added 31 points as well in this game as Louisville gets the win. Absolutely unbelievable. And Matt, you could pop up the Jeff Borzello tweet, because the Mikel Brown Jr. stuff, we just got to talk about that for half a second. 45 points, 9 rebounds for a 6'4" guard, 2 assists, 3 steals. This was the cool part. 14 of 23 from the field, so he wasn't like totally forcing it. 10 of 16 from 3. This tied a single game program record for both points and 3-pointers made, set an ACC freshman single scoring record. So you talk about all the great freshmen in the ACC, Michael Jordan, Jason Tatum, Zion Williamson, whoever. ACC freshman record, ties a Louisville record, ties a Louisville record for three-pointers. The Louisville record was actually held by Wes Unseld. Pat Kelsey was gushing about it after the game. You know who else was? Mikel Brown Jr. He had some funny comments about the performance. Matt, let's go ahead and play Mikel Brown Jr. after the game.
I did not know. And to be honest with you, I was just so locked in on just staying with it and just not having to drop off. Just maintaining my aggressiveness and my will to, create for myself and for others as well. I think, the gravity that was being pulled towards me kind of opened up everybody else, and we was getting walk-in layups and we was getting open shots. So I definitely wasn't thinking about the record at all until they just came to me and it was like, 10's to tie the record. I'm like, I'm going to go get it. And, Kanai actually said, man, he was like, man, pull it from the logo. Like, pull it from the logo. I'm like, all right. And that's what happened. And I just look at Coach's face, and he's just kind of like, and then he looked at me and he like nodded, like, and it was a great feeling. But like I said, man, we're going to enjoy it tonight. Can go back to the drawing board and get ready for Saturday. What about the company of Wes? That means a lot, just because he's a legend. And to cement my name in history means a lot to me. It really does. But like I said, I couldn't do this without my teammates. I couldn't do this without this team. They encourage me every single day to be myself and to stay aggressive and, just be free. And that's what we did.
That was Mikel Brown Jr. after the game saying Connie Roos said, pull it from the logo. That's exactly what he does. Unbelievable game. Unbelievable performance. And it is worth noting, by the way, Ryan Conwell with 31 points in this game. You don't want to undersell that either. So listen, first of all, with Louisville, let's go ahead and give them credit, because I think there's two things here. One, they're playing better. Two, Pat Kelsey was a little bit under fire, and I think part of it was they shoot a lot of threes. When they make them, they look awesome. When they don't make them, they don't look awesome, whatever. But it was funny because I was talking to somebody who knows the program pretty well on Monday night after the game, and I said, they drew up some ball plays over there. They said there's no drawing it up. It was just he was unbelievable, one. But two, I do think there was a strategic move that Louisville made that was really smart. Okay, and I don't do X's and O's, and I'm not an X's and O's expert, and I'm not claiming to be, okay? But at the same time, what stood out to me is that Mikel Brown has been unbelievable. But listen, he's labeled a point guard. He's going to be drafted a point guard, whatever. But he plays best, frankly, probably off the ball and really looking for his own shot. And it's not to say that he can't get others involved, and it's not to say he's a bad point guard. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is this. As I noticed in this game, and I've really noticed since he came back, it feels like there is a concerted effort to kind of play him a little bit off the ball, let him get going offensively, and let others get involved. So in this game, Ryan Conwell is playing more on the ball, which sounds crazy because Ryan Conwell had 31 points, but it doesn't change the fact that that's basically what ended up happening. And, I don't know if that was the tweak that's going to save the season or not, but you have Ryan Conwell on the ball more, and all of a sudden Mikel Brown Jr., who has been kind of up and down since he came back from injury, has what is quite obviously the best game of his college career. So, I think it's some interesting strategy by Louisville that clearly worked. And then on top of that, I think what's also interesting about it is a couple other things. Is that one, just happy for Mikel Brown Jr. This was a guy that was great in the summer with Team USA, playing with AJ DeBonsa, playing with Koa Pete, etc. Was great early, had that incredible game against Kentucky, and then got hurt, in and out of the lineup, whatever. And you could tell he was kind of pressing when he came back and had some good games and had some bad games. This was clearly his best game, and you could see the smile on his face. I thought it was pretty cool to hear from him specifically. I think lastly, what I would say is this, is that, I think everybody gave up too early on Louisville. And listen, I get a lot of stuff wrong. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I've never gotten anything wrong. But during that stretch, during ACC play, when they really struggled without him, I had everybody asking me, Torres, what's going on? And, again, is Louisville, do they shoot too many threes? They don't have enough offense, and they don't do this, and they don't do that. And I just said, it's kind of hard for me to judge them as a team not at full strength. Now, when Mikel Brown Jr. was out, you had all the same internet rumors that you did with Darryn Peterson. I didn't buy it. I give him credit. he came out and he put out a statement that basically said, I'm doing everything I can to get back. Don't believe what you read online. I'll be back at some point soon. And he has been. And I'll just say this is that it was hard for me to really judge that team until I saw them back at full strength with him. 9-1 to start the season with him in the lineup. Then they go 5-5 without him. They are now 4. I think they were 5-4 technically. Now they are 4-0 in their last 4 games with him. And so I just bring it up because, yes, they struggled in that middle stretch. They lost to Stanford. They got destroyed by Duke in the first game where it was close early, then it wasn't, whatever. I just bring it up because I think we now see at full strength that this is a very good team. So congrats to Louisville. The only thing I would say, yeah, you've already played Duke twice, so that's good. Schedule gets very tough from here. It's kind of sad in some ways. Probably the last really signature game for the Louisville Cardinals at home this year, because final couple weeks of the season, here is the schedule. They play at North Carolina. Not going to be easy with the way Carolina is playing. They play at Clemson. Clemson, very clearly a good team. They play Baylor actually on a neutral court this weekend, and then they play at SMU, at Miami. So you were talking about down the stretch, 4 road games against 4 teams that I believe will be in the NCAA tournament. SMU, Clemson, and UNC comfortably in. Miami on the bubble. I think Miami gets there. So it's going to be a tough schedule. No rest for the weary. Baylor this weekend. Congrats to Louisville on the win, and congrats to Mikel Brown Jr. on a game that he will never, never forget. All right, let's go ahead and keep it going. We got some other stuff to talk about. By the way, some people are calling Torres a conspiracy theorist. We'll get to those in a minute. No conspiracy on Charles Bediako. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk Charles Bediako. This is the story that has really kind of swept college basketball over the last couple weeks. Never clear. Listen, I think everybody knows the backstory, but everybody's starting to get eligible. You have these European players eligible. Then James Nagy gets eligible. Well, I bring it up because we all know where we were about 3 weeks ago. We find out that Charles Bediako is trying to come back to college basketball. Alabama gets a temporary restraining order. He plays that Saturday against Tennessee. Alabama loses. They then play 4 more games as it's going through the court system. The original judge has to be recused. They extend the stay through the weekend, coincidentally, until the day after they have to play Auburn in the jungle. Do with that information as you please. Well, I bring it up because on Monday, we found out that a judge in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, has said that Charles Bediako, the injunction has been denied. And it looks like the end of the Charles Bediako era part 2 at Alabama is upon us. So I want to talk about this from all angles, what it means for Bama. Was it worth it? Is like the NCAA going to come down and punish them? But, let me start by saying this, is that, listen, I'm not going to get into the legal mumbo jumbo of everything that was said in court on Monday. But essentially what the judge said was like, your argument's nonsense. Okay, the argument was basically that there was going to be irreparable harm if Charles Bediako was not allowed to play at Alabama. And what the judge basically said is, there's no proof there's irreparable harm. You can still get paid to play basketball, just not here. And he basically sided with Greg Sankey and said this is a bad precedent for the rules that are currently in place. And again, there had been nobody like Charles Bediako in this situation. There's nobody that has the same situation as Charles Bediako, because Alabama fans, and I love Alabama fans, I know they're mad at me right now, whatever. This is not like all of these European players coming from overseas. It's just not, okay? The European system is different. Now, yes, many of them played at a high level professionally, but one, as we said a couple weeks ago, Greg Byrne, the AD, is claiming that these Europeans are making millions over. There are no European teenagers making millions. If they were, they wouldn't come over here. They would stay there and make millions in their home country or their home continent or whatever, or they'd come and play in the NBA if they were that good. So there's no Europeans making millions. And 2, the difference even between Charles Bediako and James Nagy, and again, to be fair, I don't think James Nagy should be eligible either, but the fundamental difference even with James Nagy is 2 things. One, He never played college basketball and renounced his eligibility. That is what Charles Bediako did in 2023. He was eligible. He went through the draft process, as I thought Todd Golden eloquently said. Listen, he went through the draft process. We all know if you keep your name in the draft after that deadline, you're done. So that is not what James Najee did. That's not what anybody else did. And then the other fundamental difference is whether you agree with James Najee being eligible or not, he was ruled eligible by the NCAA. That's a big difference than what happened with Charles Bediako, who was never ruled eligible. And so Nate Oates commented on it, Matt. We don't even need to show the Nate Oates quote because, and this isn't a knock on Nate Oates, but he basically said, like, look, Matt, if you have the still, you might. This is what Nate Oates said on his Hey Coach show. He said, "We're obviously super disappointing in the whole thing. To be honest with you, I don't think it should have ever gotten to court. I thought the NCAA should have made him eligible based on over 100 college basketball players currently, former professionals, most of them over in Europe, some in the G League, guys being drafted, rights owned by NBA teams, as in James Najee being eligible. I thought it was kind of a no-brainer with the NCAA. Then I didn't think it would be much of an issue. The NCAA hasn't really changed much without courts forcing them to change. I thought the courts would see in the inconsistencies in the ruling and agree with Charles's attorneys." And so Nate Oates went on, but basically he said, so many guys have been eligible. I didn't even think it was an issue. But when it got to court, I thought the courts would see that Charles isn't that different than these other guys. Well, he is different, and we just explained it. And so now I guess my question is, I'm curious to see what happens from here. One, I have to question if it was really worth it for Alabama. Listen, I know you want to win games, and I know that you've had injuries. By the way, part of the reason you're in this position, you just whiffed on guys in the portal. Never understood the Noah Williamson thing. He was the big man that they got out of the portal, who I didn't think was that good. Whatever. Not here to criticize him. But Alabama wants to talk about injuries, wants to talk about this, wants to talk about that. No, you whiffed on guys in the portal. That's part of it. But two, you became a national punching bag for several weeks, and everybody just kind of mocked you. Like, it was what it was. Like, you were just the team that nobody liked, everybody disliked, unless you were an Alabama fan. And I just wonder if it was worth it. Like you ended up going 3-2 overall. I'll be honest, outside of the Auburn game this weekend, you probably win the games that you would have won without them. You destroyed Missouri. I know the A&M game was close, but if you actually watch the A&M game, they play so fast that Bediako actually barely played, and that's not even a knock on Bediako. Just stylistically, it wasn't the right game for him to thrive in. So, yes, you probably do beat Auburn. You probably might not beat Auburn without him, but, you went 3-2. You maybe go 2-3. Is it worth 3 weeks of being a national punching bag for everyone in the media, everybody in college basketball? Maybe it was. I don't know. But at the same time, it was ugly. It was bad. I'll say this really quick side tangent. Matt, you could pop up the Kevin Sweeney tweet. I thought Kevin Sweeney from Sports Illustrated brought up a great point. He said, who should be mad about this? Bucky McMillan and Steve Pearl both lost games, razor-thin margins with Charles Bediako in the lineup. And I was thinking about this, those are the guys that should be mad. A&M is in competition for an SEC regular season title. You think that, again, I don't think Bediako made that much of a difference, but I'd be pissed if I was Bucky McMillan, and I'd certainly be pissed if I'm Stephen Pearl, very much on the bubble in year one, kind of needed that win, and they had a ringer in the lineup that should have never been playing. So it's a bad look overall. I'm glad it's done. Now, some of you did ask me, is there any chance the NCAA makes them forfeit these games, okay, the games that they won? And what I would say is, listen, that was my stance from the beginning. I would say if you're the NCAA, okay, all right, you want to play this guy. We can't stop you from playing him. But what we can do is say any game that you play in with him, it's a forfeit because he's ineligible. So that's what I've said from the beginning. What I would also say, John Rothstein did get an official statement from the NCAA. The NCAA told John Rothstein that they will evaluate Alabama for the 2026 tournament by the roster that is available to them for March Madness per an official. And as Rothstein said, what I just did, Crimson Tide went 3-2 this season with Bediako in the lineup. And so the way that reads to me, I think the NCAA isn't going to push it too far. One, the original temporary restraining order said no irreparable harm could be done to Alabama. That would be forfeiting games, keeping them out of the tournament. I think the NCAA, they got the win here. I'd hope and I'd think that they're smart enough to say, you know what, we're not going to push our luck on this one. We're just going to sit this one out. And, you start breaking temporary restraining orders, bad stuff can happen legally. I'll let the lawyers in the chat decide on that one and argue on that one. But to me, when I do look at this, what I do think can happen is a couple things. Is one, certainly Alabama's NCAA, because again, what the statement basically says, and I'm rambling now. We're an hour in. Sorry, I got hyped up about Darryn Peterson. Okay. What the statement basically said to Rothstein was that we can't punish them for playing Bediako, but what we can do is evaluate them with the team that they have come Selection Sunday versus the team that they've had throughout the regular season. So in other words, you can't punish them. You can't call their wins losses, but in theory, what you can do is say, like, you know what? Guess what? It's not the same team. We can kind of ding you on the resume and say those wins don't quite feel the same because you don't have the same team that you had when you had that player in your lineup. And two of the games that you won were very, very, very close. And so I don't think there's an NCAA tournament ban coming. I think most likely what ends up happening is that geographically Alabama is put in the least advantageous spot they can. I don't know. I don't know who is even hosting NCAA tournament sites this year, but if there's a site in Seattle, if there's a site in Boise, if there's a site, I know San Diego is an opening round. Ironically, Alabama was there the last time there was games in San Diego. It wouldn't shock me if Alabama was placed as far from home geographically as possible. I don't think you ding them too much on seed lines because you start knocking them down a seed line, then you impact other teams. I use the example, but say they're a 7 seed, right? On Selection Sunday, that's what they should be. Well, you move them to an 8 seed. Now you impact the number 1 seed in the region. Now you impact the number 9. Everyone's path gets much, much, much tougher. So to me, I don't really see much coming of this. They're not going to get banned from the NCAA tournament. I don't think they significantly get hit as far as seeding is concerned. I could see them, again, maybe being put in a geographical disadvantageous spot. So, again, maybe they're the 7 seed in the San Diego region and they have to play Gonzaga or something like that. Looks like Portland and San Diego. So maybe they have to play, if they were going to be the 7 seed, maybe they have to play Gonzaga in Portland where Gonzaga will clearly have the home court advantage. I just think it was a big loss for Alabama. I don't think it was worth it. I never thought it was worth it. We know what happened, by the way, a few years ago with Nate Oates with the Brandon Miller situation, and we don't have to relitigate that. But I just bring it up because he was already kind of the guy that was, we know how that one played out. For him to do this, I think it does kind of impact how people view him and view Alabama. But it's over, and I'll lastly say I think this is a good day for the NCAA. We've talked about it, but you allow this kid to keep playing, it changes everything. It changes eligibility rules in college. It changes NBA draft eligibility rules. All of a sudden, that draft deadline in May that we all kind of circle on their calendar means absolutely nothing. Guys coming and going as they please. I guess there is good news, though, for Charles Bediako. I tweeted this. I forgot to send it to Matt. Alabama folks told me and told everybody that he was just back at Alabama to work on his degree. It had nothing to do with basketball. So that's the good news. Charles Bediako with more time to work on his degree because he ain't playing for Alabama anytime soon. All right, I'll tell you what. We do kind of have to get out of here. I actually am, like I said, interviewing Bryson Tiller, the Kansas Star from Monday night. We will run that interview this evening on the pod. Matt, I will do Jon Scheyer really quickly. Another one that I certainly made headlines for, and we all made headlines for. After the Duke game, Duke Carolina, Jon Scheyer, we're not going to play the clip, but goes to the podium and says, I dealt with some people, and staff members got punched in the face after the game. And I'll tell you what, a lot of you seem to react to that because our TikTok and Instagram, by the way, you can follow us, Aaron Torres Pod, TikTok and Instagram, both blew up with this clip. And certainly it did on YouTube as well. But 24 or so hours after the game is done, no video. 36 hours after the game, no video. And so it becomes pretty clear that Jon Scheyer, what he said was not accurate. Now, obviously, I said in real time he lied about it. Listen, he probably saw a guy with a little bit of a bruise, whatever. Anyway, I'll tell you what, Matt, real quick, I'll just get to what Jon Scheyer said on Monday. Let me find what he said. So he said, quote, my assistants are fine. After the game, what happened was I came into the locker room and I saw he's got a bloody lip. He's disheveled and he didn't know what happened. He got trampled on the floor. That was my main concern after the game. And that's why I said what I said. It was not a good situation, but he, being the assistant coach, is doing better. He's fine, ready to move on. I don't have anything else more to say other than that. So Jon Scheyer basically running back my coaches got punched accusations. So that's good. And listen, I might be in the minority. I don't think he purposely lied. Like I said, I think there was pushing and shoving. I think, like I said, there was a scratch or something. And, he should have said, my guy got shoved, my guy got pushed, whatever. I don't think he should have said punched, but there's not much more here. To be honest, Duke plays tonight, and assuming there's not another court storming and assuming there's not another punch accusation, we're all going to move on. But I thought it was at least worth noting that that did happen. Jon Scheyer sort of running back the comments on that. Matt, any good questions before we go ahead and get out of here? I see Darren saying Scheyer, the liar. Mike Jones, who I know loves our recruiting coverage, says, Torres, stop pushing false narratives. Worry about your boy Quaintance shutting it down for no reason. Well, Jaden Quaintance did get surgery on his knee like 7 months ago. Well, I guess it was like 11 months ago now. He got surgery on his knee in late February, early March of 2025. That surgery did happen. I actually thought he rushed back too soon, but whatever. Let's see here. Caleb says, if Peterson comes back this Saturday and balls out against Iowa State, then later against Houston, all will be forgiven. I agree. Listen, my argument is not that like Darryn Peterson's the worst human being. My argument is if Darryn Peterson can't stay healthy for 2 consecutive weeks during a college basketball season, I'm just not taking him. And so we've said our Darryn Peterson piece. I don't know much else there is to add. But again, coming into Monday, he had played 2 games of 30-plus minutes. We thought we were past this. Now, all of a sudden, it's the same cycle over and over. Could he have played? Should he have played? I don't know. It is interesting, though. 3 most high-profile games of the year. Duke, UConn, Arizona. He does not play. And then, oh, by the way, against AJ DeBonsa and BYU, he sits out essentially the entire second half of that game. Let's see here. Anything else interesting? Mr. Wolfgrams on Darryn Peterson. I've been telling everyone in my circle the same thing. Something isn't right about him and his suspicious health issues. It's suspicious. I think suspicious is the right word. That's all I'm saying. By the way, I got Kansas fans and even some former players tweeting at me, don't question the guy's manhood. I'm not. I'm just saying I want to take him with the number 1 pick. Not when Caleb Wilson is available to me. Not when AJ DeBonsa is available to me. There are guys that I do not have to question how tough they are. Yeah. By the way, on Twitter, the tease of this show, I did say Darryn Peterson's stock is plummeting. A lot of people not happy with the word plummeting. But you know what? Guess what? We have fun on this show. We keep it real on this show. And we're going to get out of here for this show. If we're not subscribed to the Aaron Torres pod, please make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcast, make sure to subscribe. Rate, review the show. Go ahead and give us a quick 5 stars. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, all that good stuff. Make sure you're following on social media. Aaron_Torres on Twitter. Aaron Torres Pod on Instagram and TikTok. By the way, Aaron Torres podcast questions at gmail.com if you want to come to our event at Circa Mint Kentucky Downs, Franklin, Kentucky. And oh, by the way, on top of that as well, SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. Also, Collypuffs.com gets you 15% off all of your purchases. Great snack to have around the house. We're going to roll. We'll be back tonight. Bryson Tiller Kansas Star is going to join us. Not like the Kansas City Star, the newspaper. By the way, for everyone who thinks people at Kansas are mad at me, apparently not, because they're letting Bryson Tiller come on the show. We'll be back probably about 6 or so o'clock Eastern time with that